Hi, everyone. I'm here at our grand opening for our brand new showroom, and it is a beautiful event. And I've had the privilege this evening of talking with Eric Pook and Stefan from Cirrus Consulting, and we got talking about some really interesting stuff. And I asked them to come into this beautiful meeting room that we have here to really talk about some of the things that we were chatting about because I really want to share it with you. Eric, do you mind if I just ask you a few questions?
Of course.
Okay, I'm just going to turn this around. Okay, so this is Stefan and Eric from Cirrus Consulting, and that's our beautiful new showroom in the back. So we were talking a little bit about leasing and the fact that you do lease consulting, and there's a lot of mystery around what this is. In particular, when I've spoken to some of my offices, they have talked about the fact that they consulted with their lawyer, and I think that that's based on our conversation. That's a common thing that you guys hear. So, what is it that you offer that you're not going to necessarily get through a lawyer? Why would somebody want to work with Cirrus Consulting?
Yeah, great question, Tracey. Thanks so much for having us here. It's been a beautiful grand opening for all of your clients in the Golden Horseshoe. It is worth the travel because it is truly a state-of-the-art facility. In that same vein, what's unique, speaking of how hyper specialized Henry Schein is on the dental space here, and the immaculate history, very similar to Cirrus, right? 30 years now in the business. We are the only healthcare specialized tenant advisory and lease negotiation firm of our kind in North America. So that hyper speciality is key. And there's lots of resources out there of, I've got a guy that can, negotiate the lease, or I looked at, my lawyer looked at it 20 years ago type of thing. But things change. If we've learned anything over the past few years, the world has changed 180 degrees. So, to answer your question, what's very important is a value to all Henry Schein clients. We'll do a full complimentary rental rate analysis, lease review, etc. If nothing else, just for a second opinion. What's happening now through so many clients in the Golden Horseshoe, it's the best of times and the worst of times. You've got some doctors that are unfortunately getting squeezed from these landlords that are having all the interest rates and mortgage rates going up, and they're not squeezing the florist or the nail salon, but they're squeezing that multi-million-dollar dental clinic. So one of the most important things now are to understand what are the risks hidden in your lease. And it's a great way, it's a free way to understand what's in the lease, right? Especially for those doctors thinking of contemplating transitioning, selling, and not realizing the impact of relocations, demolitions, or just a lack of term. Stefan?
Yes. Did you have anything to add to
Yeah,
that?
and to your point there, so what makes us a little different from a lawyer is really our point of view when we're looking at a lease. A lawyer cares about, is something legal, is it illegal? And typically everything in a lease, if it's done above board, is going to be legal. But just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right or it makes sense for a dental practice. And what a lot of our clients find out is that they've signed the lease, and it's the same lease as the Subway sandwich store on the corner, or the convenience store, or the run-of-the-mill accounting office. Run a very unique type of business. In no way should you have the same lease.
So then, what are the impacts if those things get missed on a lease? Like, do you have any examples of instances where it's made a big difference for somebody?
Yeah. So I was actually speaking with a doctor just this night before I came to the event, and I was specifically talking about the assignment section in his lease. And this is the section in the lease that really deals with what control does the landlord have over the sale of the practice? Are you going to be stuck on this lease even after sale? So there was a certain section in this lease that dealt with continuing liability. And this essentially means even after the sale of his practice and he assigns this lease over to somebody else, he's still stuck on the lease for all the rent or otherwise if the seller defaults. And he said to me, he's like, I don't get this. I had a lawyer, they reviewed everything, and they didn't even mention this clause to me. And that's where I said, well, they didn't mention it to you because it's legal. And to them, they think, okay, that's a green check. There's nothing wrong with here. It's a quote unquote standard thing in a lease. And Eric and I see this in 99.9% of the leases we read. Maybe it makes sense for your Edward Jones office. Doesn't make a lot of sense for a dental practice. Because again, most businesses don't change hands the same way a dental practice does, right?
Absolutely.
If somebody finishes their accounting office, not necessarily selling it, they just close up doors and enjoy retirement. Dentists, you're selling your practice. You're handing that off to somebody else. And through that handoff, if it's not done correctly or your lease isn't structured properly, you face a lot of liability by still being tied to a space that you might not physically even operate in anymore.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And then, Eric, you were talking earlier, I heard you speaking to somebody else about somebody who had used you for one lease and not used you for another lease. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it's, Rob was a great past client of ours, and it was a perfect example where, it was one of those who just didn't know what I didn't know. But similarly, right, he had bought and sold two different locations, one of which had, it just was a disaster. It took forever. It was an incredibly long period of time, and the legal fees were astronomical. Then the second one, he had us renegotiate that lease, create a long-term lease, term options, and fix a lot of those components that were missed, right, from his former lawyer that did the previous one. So it allowed the actual assignment, as Stefan said, to be a simple, straightforward transition. And, his point is we paid for ourselves multiple times over, not only from the original lease, but he saved more in the legal costs, right, from dealing with all the issues with his previous one, versus his legal costs for the second to do the agreement of purchase and sale and transfer it was next to nothing, because there was a clean lease, there was a clean assignment across the board. So it's so impactful. Just back to the dental specificity, right? How many clients have come to you to say, hey, my uncle's a contractor, right? Or I've got someone that's, never done a dental plumbing deal or dental electrical. It is a different universe. So for sure, anybody that's heck, we just did a video with Dr. Sam Thatcher, the dentist for the San Francisco Giants, and he said cleanly, yeah, my family friend that was a lawyer that helped me out in 19 whatever, right? And yeah, we were just so excited to get going that no one else, right? That I didn't even know what I had signed within the lease. So overarchingly, it's an incredible time to just know what's in it, right? Have that secondary review and then create that negotiation treatment plan, because the dentist is the best tenant on the planet. Highest build out costs, lowest default rates, there for 26 and a half years, and everybody's COVID proof because we can't work from home.
That's amazing. Well, before we wrap up here, are there any last thoughts or any last things that you'd like to say just very quickly to the folks that are watching this video?
Yeah, again, starting a practice, it's a business, and anything else to do with your business, you would always consult with the experts before you do it. Anytime you sign something, you want to make sure experts are looking at it. Your lease is no different. Lease isn't just how much rent I'm paying, because that's the first 2 pages of your lease. There's 30, 40, sometimes 50 pages afterwards of legal provisions that really govern what's going to happen with your business, and it's important to understand exactly what you're signing before you put down the ink.
Absolutely.
And I'd add to all of your great clients and loyal clients you've worked with for years, those doctors that are mid-career, don't fall into the trap of not renewing your lease in time. Almost every single doctor reaches out to us and say, I can't believe it. I missed my option to renew deadline. The landlord now wants to sneak in demolitions, relocation clauses, right? Wants to try to kick me out, or wants to bump my rent by 30%. Knock the landlord off their standard feet and be able to start the process 2 years prior. Make sure you've got someone in your corner that has all the data, right? Let it be the 13,000 leases we've done, or the license data to know what fair rent is and annual increases are. And that local lawyer that might have helped them 10, 15 years ago, I'm sure doesn't have anywhere near the same amount of data in terms of what fair market rent is, and more importantly, how to make sure that every drop is being squeezed out of that lemon to help ensure that you're getting the best long-term lease aligned to the long-term transition.
So on that note, just one more quick question. What would be the ideal time to contact you? 3 months before the end of the lease, 6 months, 2 years, like what are we talking about here?
best practices at least 2 years prior to the lease expiry. But remember, in some cases, the landlord might have over 12 months to notify them if you're going to stay or not. So really reach out to us anytime. We're happy to do a complimentary call for any one of your clients, Tracey, because it is the second biggest expense to your practice beyond the staff, and it's the least likely to be reviewed, understood, let alone properly negotiated.
Amazing. I'm just going to flip this around. So if you do have any interest in talking to Stefan or Eric or anybody from the Cirrus team, I highly, highly encourage it. There's a lot to be gained and a lot more to lose by not having these conversations. And Eric made mild mention of it, but to have that initial consult, if you contact me, I can introduce you to this team, and you will get that for free. So it's worth the conversation just to have that second opinion put onto your lease before you're in the renewal process. So reach out to me, and I will connect you with the folks at the Cirrus team and get you that complimentary consult. Thanks, everyone.